Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, May 9th through Sunday, May 15th. So, I'm titling this forecast for this week Ascension, and I think that word is somewhat overused in the spiritual and metaphysical community. It can have many different meanings, but I think we can all sort of agree that it has to do with gaining consciousness or becoming enlightened. And also, ascension can mean literally ascending or raising elevation. So, this kind of has a double meaning. One, I'm just mostly talking about the moon cycle here. The moon is sort of ascending in a way relative to the sun as it comes around. It's waxing, it's gaining light, and it's getting closer to what will eventually become a full moon lunar eclipse next week. So that won't be in this week's forecast, but it's just immediately afterwards. So we're kind of ascending relative to the moon, and the moon is really at the center of the attention right now since we're in the middle of eclipse season. So that's a big part of it. Another reason, though, why I chose that word is because of the more metaphysical context. So there's so many major astrological events and transits happening right now. It's such a very very interesting time, and there's a lot of dramatic changes happening right around now. And so I think this is a major part of ascension in the sense that we are all having this opportunity to gain consciousness in a very quick way. We can make sudden leaps of consciousness and really figure things out in a very quick pace, with all these different astrological changes and with the eclipse season that is upon us as well. Okay. And so, speaking of these large events and changes that are happening, we are in the middle of eclipse season, like I mentioned. We won't have any major events relative to the moon for this forecast, and that's only because we just had the quarter moon just immediately before the week that this will cover, and then we're having the full moon lunar eclipse just immediately after this week. On the night of Sunday, May 15th, going into early Monday, May 16th. So this week we don't have any of the exact aspects going on with the moon, but the moon is gaining light, as I mentioned. So we're generally increasing the vibe, increasing the energy, the activity as the moon gains light and gets more full and closer to that full moon lunar eclipse. But besides the moon, two major events happening this week are they both fall on Tuesday actually. So we have Jupiter going into Aries, and on the same exact day we have Mercury turning retrograde at 4 degrees Gemini. Both of these are really really big changes. Jupiter only changes signs once every year or so. Its transit through Pisces has been much shorter, so it will retrograde and go back into Pisces later on this year. But for now, it is going into Aries, so that's a big deal. It's a much more active sign. Aries is very, obvious. It's very transparent, and it's a very energetic kind of outburst of an energy. So we will all experience that. Jupiter kind of sets the tone. It sets the background, and it kind of shows that what we're exploring morally and kind of in our society. So with Jupiter going into Aries, there's going to be a lot more activity, a lot more new events happening. Okay, and then with Mercury turning retrograde, this just adds a little bit to the chaos. It can seem very dysfunctional for sure, but in its best way, if we utilize Mercury retrograde, we can use this to kind of delve within ourselves, within our subconscious, to seek inspiration or creativity. Mercury retrograde is really great for that. It's only dysfunctional when we try to do things very linearly, and in a kind of, I don't know, like in a boxy kind of way. I'm picturing like boxes or like a factory line. If we try to make everything a factory line and have everything planned and have everything, linear going from A to B to C, Mercury retrograde just doesn't really support that at all. Mercury retrograde wants to jump around, it wants to bounce around, it wants to be less active physically, but more active in the subconscious or psychically. Okay, so that's how that can be used, and I'll talk about that more once I get to that day here. The last major astrological event that I'll talk about before I get into the specifics here, going day by day, is the sun will cross over the north node this week as well. So this marks the exact halfway point of eclipse season. We're already in the middle of it pretty much. And there is no new moon or full moon on the same day that the sun crosses over the north node. Now, if there was, then that would be a total eclipse, a total new moon or a total full moon um, eclipse, basically. So we don't have that for this eclipse season, but that that's these are still very intense times. There's still a lot of impacting energy from this eclipse season, but that's what my major takeaway of this is. Sun crossing over North Node means that's kind of the midpoint, the halfway point of the eclipse season, and it also, even in itself, it can point to major changes happening as well. Okay, and then lastly, before we get into the weekly forecast, for the tarot card I drew this week, I drew the moon reversed, and I thought that was, I mean, I think the most obvious interpretation is just that, it's so funny that the eclipse season is obviously the major thing going on right now, and then to get the moon card, even in the description I read, it shows that, you must pay attention to the moon, the lunar cycles. It's an extra good time to take advantage of the new moon or the full moon. And I can actually let's actually go to that now. So it says, when the moon card appears in your tarot reading, pay close attention to the lunar cycles and attune to its divine power using ritual, visualization, or tarot readings. Connect with the divine feminine and uncover deep intuitive insights and visions of what lies beyond everyday life. On the new moon, set your intentions and plant the seeds of opportunity so they can grow. And on the full moon, honor your achievements and look at what you need to release so that new aspects of yourself can shine. So how perfect is that, right? Like, especially, being in the eclipse season right now, it really just means that the new moons are extra powerful. The full moon, is extra powerful. The whole lunar cycle is extra powerful. So it always baffles me how accurate the tarot cards are. But besides that as well, the moon tarot card is a lot about intuition. So how how do you kind of seek guidance within yourself? Basically, it's this intuitive psychic sense that comes from within us. And both this card as well as the card I got for last week both kind of deal with themes involving, turning to yourself for guidance, turning to some kind of sense or knowing within yourself for guidance, and kind of being your own teacher. So I thought that was very interesting as well, and something to think about. And then for more information, I'll include a description. I'll include that full page that I just went to, and I'll have that in the description below. And that's from biddytarot.com. So okay, so without further ado, let's get into this weekly forecast here. So we start on May 9th, on Monday, and the moon is still in Leo. So remember, on Sunday, May 8th, we just had this first quarter moon in Leo, and that's a very intense time. And I thought, even though we're kind of coming off of that now, going into Monday, I just wanted to explain what I mean by first quarter moon. So when we see a first quarter moon, it will appear as the right half is lit up. So it's like you could almost call it like a half moon. The reason why it's called a quarter moon is because the moon is a quarter of the way through its cycle, through the lunar cycle, when it is halfway lit up, okay? And that's a big deal because when it does that, the moon squares the sun. It's a tense aspect. It pushes us to make change. We can be extra tense, anxious, or stressed, but we can also be extra motivated and inspired to make change and to be active, okay? So although we are not experiencing that exact aspect on Monday, the moon starts out still in Leo, so we're still coming off of that energy. We're still feeling kind of wound up. Maybe not so much so, it's not as acute as, when we were dealing with the exact angle between the moon and the sun. But the moon is still in the same sign, especially, for the first half of the day on Monday. So, and also Leo is such an active sign anyway. It's a fire sign. It's outgoing. It's gregarious. So anyways, so Monday we're really kind of starting the week, hitting the ground running, I guess you could say. We're very active, very, impulsive or spontaneous. We're, and again, on the downside of it, we might be maybe extra stressed or irritable, maybe more anxious. But on the plus side of it, as long as we're applying this abundance of energy, that can minimize the stress or the anxiety, and that can capitalize on the productivity of it. That's all this angle wants from us, or that's all that it's kind of supporting, is it's showing that we need to make a change. There's some kind of new energy that came from the new moon, the Taurus new moon solar eclipse that we had a week ago, and now that energy has really made itself known with this first quarter moon that we just experienced. So Monday is an active day. A lot of what I said for Sunday applies to Monday as well. I would really support, being physical, being active, doing something maybe physically active, like, athletic, And even, it doesn't have to be super intense. It definitely can be, but even going for a walk or something like that. Sun is in Taurus. It's an earth sign. So, maybe something involving nature. That's the whole thing. You can gain a lot of intuition from slowing down your mind. And sometimes, doing physical activities can kind of help calm the mind. It's not good to have too much energy in one place in your body. And I think, the way we are in our society, we're always so mentally focused. We're always thinking and analyzing. Sometimes it's a lot better to get lost in doing, I don't know, some kind of physical activity where we can, focus on a sport or a game or even just like a walk through nature or something. To feel in our bodies. So that's what I would definitely suggest for Monday, as well as initiation too. Any projects you want to start on or work on, that would be really great for Monday too, because this is a very productive day. It's a very energetic day. About halfway through the day, the moon will enter Virgo. On the one hand, this kind of mellows things out a little bit because Virgo is, more introverted than Leo. It's more about organizing things and still very productive, but in a more kind of methodical way. So on the one hand, that would indicate things being a little bit more mellow. However, remember the moon is still gaining light, so things, we are coming off of that first quarter moon, so things are mellowing out a little bit, but things are still a little bit intense. There's kind of a high vibe. We're still in the middle of eclipse season here. Um, this is a more easy energy to experience, though, and the reason why is because the moon is beginning to come within orb of trining the sun. Virgo trines Taurus. They're both Earth signs. Signs with the same element always trine each other. So the moon is stepping into a much more harmonious dynamic with the sun. So, especially considering that the moon is so extra potent at this time, this really just indicates that we're starting to feel very strong. So we may be very energetic and very in a very positive or kind of cheerful way. These are good mood types of energies. Like our whole collective consciousness is usually feeling very positive, very good. Things are relatively easy when the moon trines the sun. And this is not exact on Monday either, but it is, the moon is trining the sun by sign, if not by aspect. So we're beginning to feel this much more harmonious energy. All right, Tuesday, May 10th. This is kind of the biggest day of this week. We have Jupiter entering Aries today and Mercury turning retrograde at 4 degrees Gemini. So first, Mercury entering Aries, as I touched on already, this happens typically once per year, but this Jupiter's a little bit early going into Aries right now. And I think this is a big deal. Aries, I think is, all the signs are special. They all have, unique attributes, and they're all definitely worth taking note of. But I think Aries is distinct in that it starts the whole zodiac. So, and it's also, a very kind of loud or active energy. So, Jupiter going there, which controls so much of what our society experiences, so much of what we experience as a collective, and so much of what is kind of in the public eye at the moment. I think Jupiter going into the sign is a big deal. I think it shows that there's really something new that we're seeking to experience or that we're paying attention to. It can also show that we're maybe being more individualistic, more energetic. We want to start new things. And again, I'm speaking, as a community or as a society, because these outer planets, starting with Jupiter, are they affect us much more on a holistic level rather than individually. So it shows that, as a collective consciousness, as a society, we're really craving something new. We're stepping into some unknown territory. So I think that's very exciting. And as I've mentioned before, if you take a look at the astrology for the latter half of this decade, really starting with 2025 and then going onward, there's a lot more yang energies. There's a lot of air. There's a lot of fire, and I believe that this really starts the age of Aquarius, or especially around the year 2026, going into 2027. So although we aren't there yet, we're still experiencing a lot of yin energy. Neptune is still in Pisces. Pluto is still in Capricorn. These are water and earth energies. We're still being kind of, I don't want to say held back, but things are kind of delayed. They're slow still. We're still processing a lot. But Jupiter going into Aries, this fire sign, is one glimpse. It's a glimpse of something that will come in much greater abundance later. So if you do start to notice, things picking up on a societal level, or a historical level, more activity, more energy, more new things happening, just know that this is just the beginning. It's actually not even really the beginning yet. There's going to be a lot of intensity, a lot of energy, a lot of surprising new developments later on. So Jupiter going into Aries is just kind of a taste of that. Okay, and besides this, as if that weren't enough, Mercury turns retrograde at 4 degrees Gemini, and remember too, when planets turn retrograde, it's not like they just are going direct at full speed and then suddenly start running backward, so to speak. They kind of slow down. It's almost like a train. It slows down and stops, and then gradually starts moving backward. All right. So Mercury is hanging out at 4 degrees Gemini for really all this week, pretty much. It's not really moving. It's stationary as we call it, or very close to being stationary. So what that means is whenever a planet is stationary or it's slowed down, it intensifies it. Okay, and you can kind of think of Pluto as an example. Pluto is so slow; it's almost always stationary in a way, and it's retrograde almost half the time. And Pluto, of course, is very intense, as we all know. That's like one of its key words. So Mercury, as it turns around, Mercury is typically very fast, but it's traveling very slowly right now. It's in the process of changing direction, as at least that's how it appears from Earth anyway. So I would say this is actually typically the most dysfunctional part of the Mercury retrograde phase, just because because as dysfunctional as Mercury retrograde might be, it's almost more dysfunctional to change directions, and especially because so many people are caught off guard. And that's again, like I always say, that's why it's so dysfunctional because so many of us approach Mercury retrograde maybe not even knowing about it at all, or and just expecting to have things be business as usual. When Mercury turning retrograde is really showing us, no, like this is not business as usual. There's something from the past few weeks, or maybe from farther back in your past, that you didn't fully integrate. And that's okay, but now is the time to revisit that. Okay, so I think that in itself can be troubling for us. We don't want to go back. We always want to go forward. We want to experience new things. We want things to be planned and controlled. But that's not how life works, as we know, as we're learning. So Mercury retrograde again, it's an excellent time for intuitive or psychic things. If you're looking for inspiration or wanting to be creative, this is really great. When Mercury's retrograde, it's like we can access our subconscious and our psychic abilities much more readily. So it's really good for writing, for instance, as well. And this is happening also at the beginning of Gemini, and Mercury will retrograde back into Taurus. So um, for now, it's showing that maybe there's something more intellectual that we need to kind of rethink. How do we look at things? How do we express ourselves? All these kind of Geminian archetypes. But as Mercury will enter Taurus a little later on, and Taurus is, just a quick side note, Taurus is kind of the star of the show right now with the sun there, and the eclipse is kind of focused on Taurus and Scorpio, but probably Taurus even more so since the sun is there. But that's already kind of the star of everything. That's where all these changes are happening in our physical environment. How do we support ourselves financially and emotionally? That's what we're all learning a lot more about right now. And there's also a lot of dramatic changes happening with the supply chain and with our economy. We're having an economic reset. We're in the middle of an 8 year long economic reset, and there's major changes happening there right now. So Mercury turning retrograde, and it will eventually go back into Taurus. So it's showing that there's something we need to figure out. There's something that we missed that may have happened to us, maybe individually, maybe collectively. I think it's definitely both, as above, so below. But there's something related to how we relate to our resources, how we support ourselves, that we've missed. It could also be something that has happened economically. So maybe something's happening with our money, or finances, resources, commodities, things of that nature. There may have been some kind of development that we overlooked or did not understand that we have to go back to gain more clarity on. And that's what Mercury retrograde helps us to do. It helps to show us what we may have missed before. Okay, so that's what's going on here. But Mercury will be retrograde for the next few weeks here, basically. Okay, but other than that, other than those major planetary events, Moon continues through Virgo. It's still not going to trine the Sun today, but it is trining the Sun by sign, so it's close. It's not exact. So this is a pretty positive day. Apart from the potential dysfunction brought on by Mercury stationary retrograde. Um, Mercury being in Gemini and then the Moon being in Virgo, these are both mercurial signs. They're both ruled by Mercury. So both of these energies are showing us, encouraging us to be organized and to be kind of maybe more intellectual or more curious, maybe pointing to us learning about something. And with Mercury stationary retrograde, that type of learning may be in a very kind of detached or indirect way. I think a lot of it is just learning from within ourselves, maybe, not learning directly from something tangible in front of us, but actually just going within for the answers. That's something I keep seeing in the astrology, first with all these Pisces energies that we experienced over the last few weeks, and then now with Mercury retrograde, and then Moon in Virgo supports that as well. So it is about learning and maybe figuring out a new perspective, but it's more coming from an intuitive source rather than like Googling something, for instance. Okay, now going to Wednesday, May 11th. Moon continues through Virgo, and it does make that exact trine to the Sun now. Moon also opposes these Pisces planets, Mars and Neptune today. So, oppositions would typically be more difficult, but because the Moon is trining the Sun, and the Sun and the Moon are always the focus of the sky as we can visibly see, but especially in eclipse season they are by far the most powerful entities right now, I would say, in the astrology, especially for like short-term transits. So despite these oppositions that the Moon's making to these Pisces planets, this trine is really solid. It's something that we'll really experience. So it's almost like you can experience a little bit of euphoria. It's like we're more able to, I don't know, feel at ease or feel strong, feel powerful. And trines are, lazy aspects. So basically, by making everything slightly easier, we can either take advantage of that to go beyond, go ahead, and be extra productive. Especially with Earth type themes, since the Moon and the Sun are both in Earth signs. So maybe, I don't know, a lot of it can be literally spending time with nature. That can be extra enjoyable and extra productive. But all the Earth signs also want to be productive in a physical sense. So they're hard workers. They want to build something. They want to create something. So that can be extra productive as well. But anyway, what I was saying, I got slightly sidetracked. But we can either take advantage of that and get more work done, and find maybe more peace, more security, or get something more done. But things being easier, you can also take advantage of that by being lazier. It's like you have to do less, and really there's no judgment there if that's what you choose. Sometimes we all need a break. And with Moon trining the Sun like this, I think, um, like on the one hand, it's still an intense energy with being in the middle of eclipse season. There's so many coincidences and synchronicities. There's so many events happening right now. But at the same time, with the Moon trining the Sun, I think there's more freedom to kind of do as we please. Things aren't as challenging right for this moment here on Wednesday. So yeah, you can kind of do with that what you will. Again, Moon in Virgo is really supporting us, maybe spending time in nature or also kind of cleaning up. Virgo likes to refine things, and Virgo is ruled by the Virgin not because Virgo is virginly, but it makes things virginly. It takes something that is, corroded or dirty, and it makes it new again. It's not literally new, but Virgo purifies things. It makes things new from a kind of metaphorical sense. So that's what you can do basically. You can do that, maybe by cleaning your house, or maybe by you can do that mentally, clearing out mental clutter, and integrating is a big part of that as well. Since Virgo is kind of all about integrating both physically and mentally and emotionally as well. So those are just some possible outlets you can apply this energy to. All right, Thursday, May 12th. Moon continues through Virgo in the first part of the day, but then quickly enters Libra before noon Eastern Standard Time. And this works pretty well. The moon is not at a harsh aspect with the sun. It's making it will make a quincunx toward the end of Libra, which is a minor aspect. So it's kind of out of aspect. So there's no, you know, like in the background, basically the moon is still gaining light. It's looking more full in the sky now. It's not quite trining, but it's getting fuller and fuller. So there's increasing energy as we get more forward here and closer to the full moon lunar eclipse. But this energy is really nice though because both the sun and the moon are ruled by Venus. Sun in Taurus with moon in Libra, so these are really Venusian energies. These energies support us being more um, peaceful or calm, more like polite and courteous. We are wanting to experience pleasant things and being pleasant ourselves, and we're more focused on desires, I guess, or self gratification a little bit. However, both Sun and Moon being ruled by Venus. In this case, Venus is in Aries, so Venus is in detriment, and Venus is also opposing the Moon. So this can show that although we are, seeking desire and pleasure, there's something almost kind of off kilter. I think this makes a lot of sense too, because especially being right before a full moon lunar eclipse, just a few days or a couple days before, we can feel this energy building, and it's almost like there needs to be a release, but we don't get that release yet. So, despite Moon being in Libra, which is typically a really calm and peaceful sign and all about harmony and compromise, that is there, but Libra can be a raging sign as well, and we're almost kind of experiencing this kind of underbelly of Libra, this reflection from Aries, where there is a kind of fire there, and there's something kind of unsettling. So there's something, I don't know, there's something like almost off kilter on Thursday. There's something not quite fitting. So it's really interesting. Hopefully, I portrayed that accurately enough. But basically, it's this combination of um, being, focusing on pleasure and desire, but maybe not always getting exactly what we want. Let's see here. Other than that, on Thursday, sun is closing in on the north, though, so we're approaching that halfway point. Mercury's still at 4 degrees, so like I said, it's still stationary. Technically, it's retrograde now, but it won't leave the fourth or the fifth degree for a little while here still. Friday, May 13th, Sun finally conjoins the North Node at 22 degrees Taurus. So again, that marks the exact halfway point, and if the Moon was already at the South Node at this point, it would be a total lunar, a total full moon lunar eclipse. So that would be an even kind of greater deal than these partial eclipses that we've been getting. But again, even the partial eclipses are so intense and change things so dramatically. So it's just those total eclipses that are even more historical and life changing. But I just wanted to throw that out there just for some general information. But again, you can kind of take this as a way as showing that the sun crossing over the north node marks us being halfway through the eclipse cycle, basically. And that's just because eclipses are new moons or full moons that happen within range of the nodes, basically. So we're halfway there, basically. All right, and other than that, the moon continues through Libra. I think things actually, I guess they're still pretty much at odds because although the moon is not opposing Venus, the moon does make that exact quincunx with the sun and the north node. And again, a quincunx is a minor aspect, so we don't always experience it, but I will, I usually don't even go into minor aspects with these forecasts, but because the whole lunar cycle is so amplified, I think it is worth mentioning. So quincunxes are very difficult and troublesome. They're very confusing aspects because quincunxes always involve two energies that have about as little in common as you possibly can in astrology. This example is not as bad because both Libra and Taurus are ruled by Venus, so there is that one strong commonality there. They're both focused on aesthetics and pleasure and desires, beauty, etc. But other than that, they have almost nothing in common. Taurus is the middle of spring, Libra is the beginning of fall. One is fixed earth, one is cardinal air. One is yin, one is yang, etc. There's not much compromise there. The only compromise in this case is that shared rulership with Venus. Typically, quincunx energies don't have the same ruling planet. It's only the Mars and Venus ruled signs that are quincunx to one another. But so that does make it a little bit better, except both the sun and the moon, like I said, are ruled by Venus, which is in detriment in this case, and Venus is no longer directly aspecting either of them, so it can't be a good host. You know, like the ancients would say, Taurus and Libra are the houses of Venus, which I know is slightly confusing because we're not talking about houses as we know in modern astrology, but you know, these are like the homes of Venus, you could say. And Venus can't be a good hostess because there's no direct aspect anymore with the moon or sun. And especially being in detriment, Venus is almost kind of in turmoil. She's debilitated right now, so she can't take care of the sun or the moon. That's how kind of ancient astrology reading would work. So again, that's where I say this shows that things are kind of off kilter. They're anxious and again, especially right on the eve, so to speak. It's not literally the night before the eclipse, but it's very close now. The moon's getting light. It's very full. So I think at this point we would all just be anxious. We'd be waiting for that full moon lunar eclipse where we can finally get that huge kind of outlet of energy and that release, and kind of move on to the next phase here, if you will. So everything's happening very quickly, but at the same time, it's almost like there's this foreboding sense on Friday. um, yeah, and I think, you know, I'm kind of thinking about what to say in order to, you know, how to make the most of this. And this is going to sound maybe strange, but something I've learned from quincunx energies is that a lot of the time you have to just kind of let it pass. You know, in my mind, I always kind of try to think of something like you know, something like if there's a challenging situation, I always think of how to fix it. But with this kind of quincunx, if there is something challenging or difficult or weird happening, a lot of times, you know, this astrology has showed me you don't necessarily have to do anything with this type of aspect. Sometimes, you know, you have to just let it be. You know, again, with quincunx energies, they're so different that a lot of times they can't compromise. There's no real solution. There's no way to kind of solve it. So you have to just let it pass. And you know, astrology also shows us that everything is temporary, especially when the moon is involved. The moon is faster than any other body in our solar system, as viewed from Earth. So really, that would be my word of advice. If Friday is awkward or anxious, if it's uncomfortable, just kind of just let it play out. Just watch it like a movie. Everything is changing very quickly, so if there is an uncomfortable situation on Friday, it will be completely gone and obliterated by the time we get into the weekend here. All right, Saturday, May 14th. Moon finally enters Scorpio. Looks like before noon Eastern Standard Time, and so now we really are truly um, getting, you know, very close to the full moon lunar eclipse. I always say, you know, even if the moon is not opposing the sun exactly right now, it is in the sign that is opposing the sun sign. So we are very much experiencing the eclipse just about to happen here. Now, moon is in detriment in Scorpio, so again, this can be very uncomfortable. Um, but let's see, the sun being in Taurus, it's illuminating the moon in Scorpio, and Scorpio wants to uncover things. Sometimes Scorpio wants to hide things, it wants to bury things, but it can do both. You know, it's very perceptive, very good at uncovering truths. But if it so chooses, it can also use that power to do the exact opposite, and to be secretive or to cloak information or things into darkness. But because this is a full moon lunar eclipse and the moon is beginning to oppose the sun is shining a light into Scorpio. So for this eclipse, I'll give you kind of a sneak peek here, just since the moon is in Scorpio already. We may uncover a lot of truths that we did not know before. And these would happen in a very unpredictable and sudden way. Things that we may have had no idea were even there. And this is supported by Mercury retrograde as well. You know, although Mercury retrograde is not aspecting, you know, the moon, or it's not aspecting any of this really, but Mercury retrograde is about that as well, especially in Gemini. Gemini, you know, that's one of the few things that are shared in common between Gemini and Scorpio, that they're both curious, they want to figure things out, and they're very good at figuring things out and uncovering, you know, information and such. So and Mercury retrograde especially is delving within. It's searching for, you know, different perspective and intuitive kind of truths and such. Um, So you may be kind of shocked at what you find starting on Saturday and really all through this weekend as the moon enters Scorpio. Other than that, Scorpio could be an intense sign, so we're feeling maybe more emotionally volatile and intense. We're feeling more in touch with our emotions since the moon is in a water sign. The water signs are more emotional, but also they're more creative and intuitive as well. So all those traits are kind of boosted within us, especially because the moon is so full right now. It's pretty much at the peak of its cycle here. So in short, Saturday is intense, and we may start to uncover a lot of truths, and a lot of these truths may be related to, well, it could be about a lot of things really, but a lot of it may be emotional or intuitive in nature, but it could be about information in your life as well. I guess it could apply to almost anything, whatever you're experiencing really. All right, Sunday, May 15th. So this is interesting. Moon is still in Scorpio, and you can see it's very close to the south node here, around noon Eastern Standard Time. And this full moon lunar eclipse, my sources say that it happens very early on Monday, May 16th, and it really depends on where you are. It happens very close to midnight, the night of Sunday, May 15th. So depending on where you are in the world, the eclipse will be either very late Sunday or early on Monday. Either way, though, we're pretty much experiencing it. It's such a heavy energy, it's such a strong and intense energy. You could basically say we're experiencing this Sunday and Monday. I feel like that would be definitely correct to say. These energies and themes would be very tangible on both days since the moon is, making that exact aspect around midnight. So again, we're experiencing a lot of uncovering truths, having truths kind of shown to us, and this again, it can happen in a very surprising way. So it may not necessarily even be that you are intending to gain new perspective or figure all this stuff out, but the sun shines a light on the moon. It just kind of shows you this. It throws it in your face, in a way. And this can be a good thing. It can be unsettling, of course, uncovering new truths. It can be uncomfortable. We may learn about things that are difficult to know about or that are not pleasant. But at the same time, this is always kind of empowering. It's just also difficult because with a new perspective, it may mean that we have to change, our behavior. It may mean we have to apply that new information in some way to truly take advantage of it and to move on to the next level. And, sometimes that's uncomfortable because it requires action and discernment on our part. But if we can rise up to the plate, rise up to the challenge, we can take advantage of this new perspective and, I don't know, gain consciousness and really, use that information to move toward a better life, basically. So that's why I always say it is difficult, but very valuable as well. Um, and this is, the probability for new realizations and breakthroughs is even, exacerbated or strengthened by the moon opposing Uranus on this day as well. So, um, and the nodes do this as well. Eclipses do this. So this is a really strong probability. Scorpio has many themes of that as well. And Scorpio is the sign where Uranus is exalted. So that shows you that Scorpio too is focused on breakthroughs and figuring things out, uncovering secrets. So that's the main probability that I see for Sunday. Otherwise, it's it's so multifaceted. It's hard for me to even know where to start. This, like I often say, it's kind of like a party energy. I don't know if I would necessarily host a party just because the energy is so intense. I think things could get out of hand very easily. People can be out of control. They could be very wound up. There's so much lunar energy. Luna is the same root word that's in lunatic. It makes us kind of crazy. It makes us so in touch with our emotions, our intuition. And the full moon, especially this gearing up for this full moon lunar eclipse, we we're so wound up and so active, these types of things are very visible, even for those that aren't into studying astrology. We can all see that there are more accidents, there's more parties, there's kind of more of everything. There's more people up late doing various things. And even though it is a Sunday night where people might not normally be up, I this is a very, very strong probability here. You can especially see this in children and pets or animals that there's just more activity. We're all kind of, again, it's like this huge release of energy. It's like this big culmination. So that's generally kind of on a a more mundane level what we'd be experiencing on Sunday. We do have just a few aspects I want to run through here real quickly. So the sun makes a sextile to Neptune at 24 degrees, Sun at 24 degrees Taurus, making a sextile to Neptune at 24 degrees Pisces. I think this is really, really perfect because it just further expands on a lot of themes that I was already seeing in the astrology, namely, focusing on our inner world, our inner guidance, maybe gaining clarity with our own subconscious or our own past, our own kind of perception, I guess, maybe gaining more clarity with ourselves, gaining more self-awareness. But also Neptune in Pisces is showing our connection to the collective consciousness and to the universe as well. So this is a really, really excellent energy for gaining inspiration, gaining intuitive messages, getting intuitive downloads, which again is something mentioned in the moon reversed tarot card as well. There's a very, very strong probability of getting downloads of information. So you may just, like these sudden realizations, it's not like you just kind of figure something out necessarily. Like you may have, when we say downloads of information, it's like, it's hard to explain, but it can be overwhelming the amount of information that can come to you from seemingly nowhere. But again, this is a very strong probability with all these energies. Besides the sextile the Sun makes to Neptune, Sun also squares Saturn today. So Saturn in Aquarius it's still continuing to put these restrictions on groups and communication. We experienced this in a very visceral way during the last couple of years since Saturn has been in Aquarius. I think, we all know kind of what I'm talking about there. These restrictions to our mobility and our communication, our ability to congregate into groups, for instance. But Sun making the square to Saturn, it shows that there's this clash between the individual, individual expression and energy versus the authority figures or the structure of society ruled by Saturn and Aquarius. So I could see maybe some potential for rebellions happening, especially considering that Saturn is making a it's making a pretty tight square to this full moon lunar eclipse as well. The full moon lunar eclipse will form a T square between the Sun, Moon, and Saturn. So this shows that the authority figures and the structure, the hierarchies in our society may be kind of the center point of this. So there may be kind of rebellions, maybe a lot of information may be leaked or figured out about the activity of our authority figures. We may figure out maybe the reasons why they've done things or had certain policies. We may figure out kind of stories of corruption that may have been hidden before, or some other kind of information or activity that was hidden that may now be lit up and exposed. That's definitely a strong probability. And and there can also be friction and general tension there. So I would see a potential for like protests or some kind of dysfunction with world governments or local governments as well. Lastly, Venus crosses over Chiron today, so that really just exacerbates that same energy. I really strongly associate Chiron in Aries with protest because Chiron in Aries is really the individual crying out and saying, this is what I've experienced, this is my pain, have been my traumas, this is my story, and I want to share where I come from. I have to be heard and understood. So it's this energy that's seeking mutual understanding, but it's because it's an Aries, it's really coming from inside going out. So since 2018 when Chiron entered Aries, I think we've seen a lot more people and groups being a lot more vocal about their pains or their traumas. So with Venus crossing over Chiron on this same day, I think it really shows that what we're desiring, what we're attracted to, is sharing those traumas and demanding that understanding. And that is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it could be very psychologically productive if we do seek understanding in a way that is at least a little bit harmonious or a little bit how do I put this? if we can come together and compromise and can listen to one another, this can create much greater understanding and empathy, which is ultimately what Chiron is wanting to show us. So that can be really rewarding. On the other hand, I think if we are too vocal and too volatile, and we're not willing to listen to any other side, and we're too focused on our own pain and our own wounds, and we are too emotional, we might be blinded by rage or sorrow, then I think this can lead to pointless destruction, and it can actually create further misunderstanding. So it's hard to say, Chiron and Aries I approach with a little bit of trepidation just because it is kind of unpredictable and a double-edged sword, as I said. So that would further increase the chance as well of, protests around the world or some kind of friction with governments as well. I would definitely look out for that. Okay, and that's what I have for you this week. I know that's kind of a big mess. I hope I hope this is going well for you. I think it is an opportunity, as dysfunctional and potentially scary as this is. I think as long as we know about this, this is the whole point of why we have astrology, is to be aware of these changes, so we aren't taken, we aren't caught off guard, I guess, so much, and we can kind of minimize the less pleasant aspects of what's going on and capitalize on these chances for greater consciousness and awareness here. That there's a lot of those happening lately. Next week there's a lot of stuff going on too. Mostly the full moon lunar eclipse is, again, it's either happening very late Sunday or very early Monday, so we're still experiencing that at the start of next week. And then the sun is also entering Gemini. It's entering a new sign. So we're entering the third trimester of spring in the northern hemisphere next week. And this gets a lot more kind of fun and playful. It's more curious. Leaving Taurus. Taurus is such it's an energy focused on stabilizing, or we're typically wanting structure. It's a little bit different with eclipse season since we're experiencing change of those structures that are supposed to be stable. But as the sun enters Gemini, we'll start to experience a little bit of lightening up as we get a tiny bit away from the eclipse seasons and these eclipses. And then also we get into Gemini, which is a more kind of carefree, jovial sign, if you will. So that's what I have for you this week, and thank you for watching. If you need to reach out to me, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.